To put that to film is an atrocity.
You guys don't know shit about torture porn.
Peeing on each other is a collaborative effort.
Hello, everyone.
Wow.
You can't share that with people.
It's like a picture of your face like this.
Hey everybody, I'm Jonathan Doe. I'm a podcaster, YouTuber, and filmmaker.
And my name is Steven. I'm a filmmaker, special effects guy, and a stuntman.
I like collecting oddities, exploring true crime cases, and directing extreme cinema.
If you like blood, gore, creatures, and more, then we've got what you're looking for. You're watching Scream Time. Jonathan Doe.
Steven Grischuk, how's it going?
It's going good. I'm ready for episode 7.
Yeah, today we are diving a little deeper. Maybe not the underground, but at least into the more extreme waters. Talking about Tom Six's Human Centipede trilogy.
I remember hearing rumors of the Human Centipede kind of sweep through my high school. Very much in the same way that pictures like the Blue Waffle did, or viral videos like Meat Spin, like we talked about in previous episodes, or Two Girls, One Cup, all that kind of stuff. This had a similar kind of air about it, where you just heard inklings of people going, oh my god, I just saw the most disturbing film I've ever seen. And being well versed in high school at that point in films like Cannibal Holocaust, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, it was on my list of things to see, obviously. And when I finally got around to seeing it, I enjoyed it quite a bit. But the real over-the-top nature of the films really didn't come into play until the sequels.
Human Centipede, the very first one, came out in 2009. I had been out of high school for a year at that point, and I was very much into, like, the identity of being, like, I'm the fucking horror guy, you know? I had, like, a fucking battle vest, and it was all, like, horror, like, exploitation films and shit. I had like a Cannibal Holocaust back patch and stuff. I was like, I was deep. Like, this is who I am or whatever, right? So I was very much like this, like, edgelord fucking, like, I'm the horror guy kind of thing, right? Hostel had come out, fucking Saw had come out, and there was like that whole kind of like protest movement of like the
torture porn,
and everyone was like, had like this torture porn genre kind of thing, and I was like, you guys don't know shit about torture porn. Like, I was like, I was the fucking hipster that fucking knew everything about horror movies and stuff. And I remember sitting, like, going to the movies and waiting in line and people talking about Human Centipede, like, oh, it's the most disturbing movie ever made. And I was like, you guys don't fucking know anything. I was like fucking 18, you know?
Right.
And we all go through that, like, edgelord phase.
Oh, totally.
I don't know if edgelord was, like, a term back then, but I definitely was being a fucking edgelord. It's funny now because, like, now the extreme people are all like the mixtape people on fucking Reddit, and they have that same thing, like, oh, you haven't seen shit, you haven't seen MD Pope, you haven't seen fucking How to Clear a Room in 90 Minutes or Less, or whatever the new thing is.
Sure. And
it's fun. I can laugh at it because I'm like, yeah, I remember being that guy, you know? Just like in the fucking metal scene, like, I know the latest underground grindcore band, you don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Like, all that.
It's all that really hipster kind of gatekeepy stuff.
Yeah.
Where you try to have some kind of superiority complex over everybody else.
And the thing that people don't realize is when you do have that mindset, all you're doing is fucking jacking off to yourself in the mirror, to be honest. Because you're being a gatekeeper and you're like, you're kind of deciding, you're the ultimate decider of what's good and bad. You miss out on good things because you're pushing back on it because it's popular. I did that with Human Centipede. So the Human Centipede came out, and I was like, I'm not going to see this fucking shit. And so I just didn't see it. And I didn't see...
That's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't... I was like, Saw's dog shit, fucking...
That's
fuck
crazy.
Hostel, fuck
That's
all this.
crazy.
Yeah, because...
Those are good movies!
But that's the funny thing is that something will come out...
Yeah.
And we'll all be like, oh, that's popular, I don't want to see it.
Right.
But a decade goes by, and suddenly everybody gives a fuck, and now it's a classic, right?
Right.
I'm going to deviate for a second. But, like, that was the same thing with Megan is Missing. Like, Megan... I remember I was, like, super into found footage at the time.
Yep.
Megan is Missing came out. No one gave a fuck when that came out. People weren't talking about it, nothing. I remember going to Amoeba in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I went there and they had a whole like display of Megan is Missing, and I bought
Wow.
it. I bought it for $9. This is just another found footage movie kit. And I bought it, right?
Yeah.
No one said shit. 10 years go by, and now it's like the most disturbing thing ever.
It blows up on TikTok. All this new generation's like, oh my god, Megan is Missing traumatized me.
So it just has to do with like time. I remember Human Centipede came out, and like in my group that was that was just mainstream, more torture porn. And I'm kind of glad that I kind of sat on it and like slept on it, because I waited for the whole trilogy to come out and then I watched them, and I was able to kind of look at it with more maturity.
Right.
And I was like, oh, these are actually pretty fucking good. And like the first one, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up on this show, is like it is a pretty good entry point if you're trying to get into fucked up cinema.
The first film.
The very first one.
Yeah.
2 fucking just steps it the fuck up. 2 is like, honestly, in my mind, like, and this is going to be controversial, Human Centipede 2 is like not on par, but in the same ballpark as like a Serbian film.
I would agree with that, and I would stand behind that statement with you.
Yeah, they would make a good double bill for sure.
Human Centipede 2 has no chill.
Yeah.
I mean, it really doesn't. I think if you were to list films into tiers, and maybe you have like a more top tier of extreme stuff, I think not including Human Centipede 2 is a mistake.
Yeah.
I think if you just look at content alone, it's extremely provocative content.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's fucked.
Yeah, and I think that one of the only reasons why people don't like to herald it as much as they do maybe a Serbian film or August Underground or something like that is because it had so much mainstream appeal.
Yeah.
And a Serbian film did break through that ceiling a little bit into the mainstream, but a Human Centipede did leaps and bounds into the mainstream. I mean, there were Human Centipede references on South Park, for crying out loud.
But I think that's exactly the reason, is that it goes back to that gatekeeping, it goes back to that hipster attitude, the fucking edgelord attitude. South Park's not referencing a Serbian film. South Park's not referencing August Underground, but they are referencing Human Centipede, and you don't want to be a mainstreamer, so you can't fucking like it. Right. But in doing that, like I did to myself, you miss out on some good shit just because it's reached the surface and people are aware of it. That doesn't have anything to do with quality. And in fact, I would say the opposite. Sometimes people praise the shit out of something because it's just obscure and it's dog shit. It's not good.
Oh yes.
But everyone goes, "Well, have you seen this newest movie?" Why? Because no one's heard of it before. You know?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, if you're one of those gatekeeper dudes who want to keep all the music, all the movies to yourself, you're literally making this potential pool of people who could be your friends, who could get interested in this content, even smaller. And why not support labels and stuff like that you want to see do well? If you want more underground films, if you want more obscure stuff, the more people you can get to pick up these kind of things from indie labels, I mean, you're only benefiting the entire scene. You can either contribute to the scene or be detrimental to it. And I don't know why you'd keep it to yourself.
When I was in high school, I was like in 10th grade probably. I had Cannibal Holocaust was like my identity. Like that was, and this other kid in high school fucking downloaded it and found it. Yeah. And I remember literally thinking like, that's my movie. Can't share that with people. That's my movie, you know? And I hated him. I fucking hated I was like, fuck you, dude. You're not worthy of this. Like, it was the most stupid, super stupid, and it is funny. But people do that.
But you're 15. I think somebody should turn that into a meme. It's like a picture of your face like this, and it's like, my identity is Cannibal Holocaust.
I think that we need to get into, like, Human Centipede 3. The whole trilogy is very meta. It's, like, aware of itself. So, for those who don't know, Human Centipede 1 is a movie that exists within Human Centipede 2. And then Human Centipede 3 takes place in a whole other universe where Human Centipede 1 and 2 are films that inspire a prison to punish the inmates. I would say that 1 and 2 have similar tones to it, I guess, a degree. I feel like the first one kind of has like more like classic horror themes to it.
Yes.
And 2 is just kind of like a bleak, dark, mean-spirited work.
Yeah.
And then 3 is kind of like a black comedy that's super fucking goofy.
It's almost like a parody of itself.
So Roger Ebert refused to review the very first one.
Wow.
And then in this, he said something along the lines of like, there's films that are just not worthy of even giving a star.
That's terrible.
Yeah, so he said that about Human Centipede 1, and then he saw Human Centipede 2, gave it 0 stars, and called it, like, abhorrent and terrible and awful and blah, blah, blah. But, like, the last thing he said is, like, this doesn't even deserve to shine with the other stars. Something along those lines. And then in Human Centipede 3, they quote him. They don't quote him verbatim, but they say something like that, like, these films don't even deserve to shine among the stars or something like that.
I love
Which
that.
was, like, a little fuck you to Roger Ebert.
If you can excuse the pun I'm about to make, if you pull your head out of your ass, you can actually appreciate the film's meta nature. They're actually a lot of fun. I like that they're really self-aware. If you have like a little bit of a sense of humor, Tom Six, maybe it's like the Dutch humor or something. Pretty much what you said about each film, I liked exactly how you put it. The first film is very much a traditional horror narrative. Girls get lost in the woods, walk into a guy's house. He happens to be like a mad scientist. You know, it's really not that far out of the realm of like something like Wrong Turn or something almost would be. But then number 2 is a total experiment in depravity, and they just throw as much as they can into the wall.
Yeah.
And then the third one, being a parody of itself, didn't really work for everybody. I don't think it worked for most of his audience, but I like that he could have such a sense of humor about it, because honestly, after the second one, you really can't ramp up much farther from there. You just have to go into different territory.
Because it gets to a point where you're like, this is awful and horrible and fucked up, but if you keep pushing past that barrier, then it just becomes ridiculous. I feel like he was almost kind of like expressing that to a degree, like, yeah, 2 is fucked, but if we push beyond that, it's going to become a comedy. What if we did do an entire prison? That's fucking stupid,
right?
You know?
We'll make a human caterpillar at that point.
Yeah.
Like, the human caterpillar is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like,
and so
they're just a mess of people on the ground.
Once it's just like a fucking tidal wave of gore, then it becomes fucking Metalocalypse. Then it's just fucking. Then it's just stupid. I wouldn't say that I would like sit down regularly and watch part 3, but when I was watching it, I was like, okay, I get it.
He's looking at the whole world going, South Park's making fun of me. I'm a joke to high school kids. And he's like, why not just kind of run with it? I actually really admire Tom Six as a filmmaker, as funny as that sounds, because he wasn't afraid to tell these stories that he wanted to tell, whether he got backing for them or not. And he pulled off very professional-looking films. You compared this earlier to a Serbian film, and that film is as well. They have really high production values.
Yeah, with good acting, good cinematography, like a well-made film.
Dieter Laser, amazing actor.
Yeah.
Lawrence Harvey, whom you've had on your
podcast. Yeah. I had the opportunity to have him on my podcast. We talked about Human Centipede 2 and 3, and he's actually like a diehard horror fan, which was fucking cool.
He was on there talking about 964 Pinocchio and stuff.
Yeah.
He's really into like artsy horror films.
He was talking to me about splatter and naked blood.
Crazy.
And I was like, hell yes. He's fucking all about it. And if you ever see his audition tape on the like trilogy box set, Tom Six tells him to rape the chair like it's the Human Centipede, and he fucking gives it his all.
Yeah, he's perfect. It's funny because I'm so happy for him that Human Centipede got so big. I heard he did kids shows or something before Human Centipede.
For those that aren't aware, my podcast is called the Uneasy Train Explorers Club, and I interview people from the horror community and porn stars and murderers and crime scene cleaners and
like me.
Yeah, and I've interviewed him.
Yeah, when I was just a budding filmmaker.
You can check it out, but it was cool to have him on.
It's awesome.
And,
it's really cool to see him have such an appreciation for all of these kind of independently made films, and then for him to kind of become an icon in the more modern sphere of more extreme, really out there, boundary pushing films.
Yeah,
because it's clear he was really well versed in the video nasties and all this kind of stuff beforehand, and so for him to kind of hit this almost legendary status, like Human Centipede is going to be a film people are going to talk about for 100 years. Love it or hate it, it's just what it is.
When kids are discovering this type of cinema, it's going to be one of those ones that are going to get to their fingertips first and they're going to want to check it out. I think giving a little bit more credit to at least 1 and 2, Part 1 got banned in a lot of different countries. It got banned in like Malaysia, the Philippines. Part 2 got banned by the BBFC initially, and they had to cut like 36 different like cuts from it, and it was like 2 minutes and like 30 seconds of footage that had to get cut for it to get accepted.
I never really jumped on the Netflix bandwagon so much, but they did have some really good stuff on there at one time, and they had a Human Centipede. So that's partially where the kind of wave of salacious stories and stuff was coming from. I remember watching it with some friends, and I remember like, oh, you guys are going to think this scene is insane when the baby gets crushed, right? And when that happens, it's like, that is such an insane scene. And people go, dude, it's not that bad. I'm like, stepping on a baby like that is a big deal. To put that to film is an atrocity. Netflix gets a hold of that scene and cuts out the scene entirely. Because I remember watching it with some friends, and a few of us were like, well, they cut that scene a little short. In certain places, I think it took a lot of years before that scene was finally incorporated back into the film. I've seen behind-the-scenes footage of Tom Six teaching as a special guest at like a film school. He showed a couple scenes as demonstration for certain things to discuss elements of his films, and several people stood up and just left. They couldn't even tolerate the scene.
Good. Fuck them.
Yeah. For all the crap that the first film got for being one of the most disturbing films ever made, as it's been heralded for years at this point now, it's very much like a traditionally told horror film, and the second one is really what elevated the film to legendary depravity status.
He was very much encouraged to make it black and white because it was considered too gory. I personally like the color version better. So, how do you feel about that?
I haven't seen the color version. Stephen Biro, you need to get on that with Bloodshot. Everyone's dying to see the Bloodshot American Guinea Pig Part 2 color. I know he has it.
I'm like really good friends with Marcus Cook, and I fucking haven't seen that one either.
I'm sure he's just waiting for a rainy day before he releases that.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's funny that you said Tom Six giving people a lot of shit. I mean, well, John, looks like we got a little thunder and lightning here in the set. You know what that means?
Movie review.
That's right. It's time for Mr. Mac's 30-second film review.
Let's do it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mr. Mac's 30-second film review. And the film that we're going to cover today is none other than Poltergeist, Night of the Chicken Dead.
Start the clock!
What do you get when Troma Entertainment tries to make a horror musical and make it the most violent film you've ever seen? Well, everyone, you get this movie. Directed by legendary filmmaker Lloyd Kaufman, whom John and Steven went and saw this last year, this film just straight up rocks. Literally, the punk rock soundtrack is awesome. Shout out to Zombina and the Skeletones for making an appearance. The movie's amazing, the jokes land, the gore is way over the top, and the songs aren't bad by any means. This film is clucking ridiculous. This has been Mr. Mac's 30-second film review. Now let's get back to the show.
Thank you for your review today, Mr. Mac. We appreciate you here on the show. Oh, goodness. Wow, do we...
I guess Mr. Hand got a paper shredder.
Yes, I think he did. Here you go. You can have some of this.
Okay. Said build your own.
Well, I'm going to need your help here, John.
That's all you. I'm good.
Oh, boy. They almost look like pom-poms. Anybody ever seen Prom Night? Wow. Oh, there we go. We actually do have mail today. Thank you very much. I'll hand this tape over here to you so you can use this for your Human Centipede. Hey, respect the set. Ellie from Looks from the Crypt wrote in another question for the show. Ellie's second question says, Hey guys, what are some of the most fun and memorable moments you have had while making your films? So, personal fun experiences while shooting Jonathan Doe projects. Oh, I kind of hit it. I hit the stand.
Yeah.
Half points. I know when you helped me shoot the Black Heart Collectors Club, all my favorite stuff for that was probably all the fire stuff. That was really fun for me. I had always wanted to be lit on fire, even when I was a kid. I wanted to grow up to be a stuntman. So as a little kid, I always wanted to do it, and now as an adult that I can finally check that box, that was a favorite moment for me. I just mentioned that because it was in recent memory. But every film has brought me tons of joy and lots of good times with all my buddies. Like I've said on other podcasts and things before, if you're not coming over to my house for pizza on the weekends, you're probably not going to be in one of my films. I only shoot with my friends, and making films just gives me a reason to have a lot of good times with my buddies.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I do feel like your productions feel like just friends all hanging out and having a good time, which it's how it should be.
Thank you. Yeah, I take that as a compliment. I appreciate it.
You hear stories about directors screaming at people and like people crying on set and all that kind of shit. And it's like,
Yeah.
What the fuck? Why would you create an environment like that? I would say that anyone who's worked with me has good things to say.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually like people, because I make films that have like nudity and people vomiting and extreme activity, you know, but
Sure.
they always come back and we always have a good time on our sets. I would say probably one of the fondest memories I have is when I shot Barf Bunny with Felicia.
Mm-hmm.
Barf Bunny was my first like, oh my god, I'm making a movie. I'm making a dream come true. Like I'm making this
Totally.
happen, right? And Felicia was already like an established actress and stuff, and so I was like I had talked to her, but we live in different states, and we were shooting in Chicago. I'm from San Diego, so I went to go like pick her up, and I think we were both nervous, but I was like really nervous, like, oh my, I'm like with a real actress, and it's like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of just like, oh my god, like I'm making this happen. Like this is really happening.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
When you start shooting a film, especially for the first time. So it is a lot of pressure. I know the feeling.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I had been a director multiple times before I got to Felicia, and so I kind of understood that role, but I do understand like taking that seat is a little hard. I had seen her films and I had admired her, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm shooting Felicia Fisher right now.
Yeah.
You know? Nerves were there, and then the nerves kind of like went away, and then we were just kind of goofing around and having fun. And then after we had finished shooting, we're in Chicago, so she took me to get my very first like legit authentic like Chicago deep dish pizza.
It's awesome.
Being there like on your own, it's an intimidating city, like it's a huge city, but having like an actual like Chicagoan to show me around was like really sick. I really liked that a lot. That bloomed into like a really good relationship, you know?
Yeah.
And I had never worked with Marcus before, but I remember I was doing a horror convention and Marcus was there, and we were like sitting at a table like eating dinner together, and I was like, I'm eating dinner with Marcus Cook right now. And now
Sure.
all these people are like my friends and stuff, but
Yeah.
I would say it was the moments for me where it was like, oh, I'm making this dream a reality. Like I'm actually hanging out with people that I used to like look up to, and now these people are my peers.
Like you said, they keep coming back, so they must be having a good time.
I hang out with everybody like on a personal level now.
I've seen it. I can attest to that. I've met a couple people whom you've worked with,
Mm-hmm.
and they all seem to be chums.
That's the other thing, is people are quick to watch people do fucked up stuff in movies, especially when it comes to like fetish content. And if you're not part of the fetish community or you don't share that fetish, people will be quick to like, someone wouldn't consent to doing that.
Where do you find these people?
Yeah.
I know you've heard that story to death.
When people see something like that and they go, Jonathan Doe must have strong-armed them and pushed them to do this. It's like defilement of a porcelain doll. All the fucking scenes in that movie, all the gross stuff, like Felicia having her pubes shoved down her throat, or them peeing on each other, or the vomiting, all that stuff, like that was a collaborative effort, and a lot of those scenes were proposed to me. And
Dude, the fact that you had to explain to everybody that peeing on each other is a collaborative effort is like the funniest thing in the world to me.
yeah. But that's the thing, is like
You can't pee on each other alone.
Well, it's consensually collaborative.
Right.
I wasn't
know what
like,
you mean. It just sounded so funny. Sorry.
fucking piss on each other.
Y'all do it now.
No. So I mean,
Oh, God, that's so funny.
but yeah, just meeting people, like meeting Little Puck was really fucking cool. It's just I think my fondest memories are like finally meeting people that like we're all part of this community together, but it's like, oh, I'm fucking hanging out. Like me and Steve and Byro aren't like super close, but I went to his apartment and like hung out with him and like got
Yeah.
to see Unearthed Films like the Where Unearthed Films happens, you know. First I was like a fan buying their movies and being like, I can't wait to see the next one, to now I'm sitting and like hearing like everything going on behind the curtain, and we're all sharing our current projects we're working on and all of that kind of stuff. That is to me like my fondest memories of all that kind of stuff. It's more of like making your dream a reality. It's like, wow, I actually fucking did it. Like with you, like you've wanted to set yourself on fire forever, and now you're sitting in the seat going, I have set myself on fire.
Like 10 times.
Yeah.
It was great.
And it was sick, you know?
Thank
and
you.
that's the same.
Thank you.
It's going from I'm going to I have.
Sure.
Is the cool thing to do. That's almost like what I'd want the takeaway of this episode to be, is like, stop fucking saying you're going to one day and start taking steps to actually.
When you don't have things on set that you need, a prop doesn't work, or somebody forgot a costume or something, who knows what could have happened, right? You have to kind of be spontaneous and think of a solution on the spot. And a lot of my favorite memories kind of come from that too. Like when we were shooting Vapor Green, I had to do like a lot of skateboarding, and I didn't realize my friend Ian had never skateboarded a day in his life. And I went, well, this is your crash course. So we had before we shot that day, I had to give Ian a complete crash course on how to skateboard, and he actually pulled off some semi-decent looking tricks on screen. A lot of people think that was me on screen, and it wasn't at all. It was my friend Ian. He's just a total freak of nature and an amazing talent, and he picked it all up at the drop of a hat. So that was a really cool memory as well.
It's cool, like, in those moments, because, I mean, making a movie has so many moving parts, and it's so easy to, like, forget something like, oh, does my actor know how to skateboard? Or,
right.
You know?
Or when you just start laughing and we miss the take because we've been busting up and laughing at each other so much. Those are all the things that stick with me.
When I completed The Degenerates, Felicia and I went on a cross-state road trip. We went to Wisconsin and we went to Chicago, checked out all these true crime spots, and that was like an awesome memory. Because Felicia and I both love true crime, dark tourism, all that stuff, and we actually recorded that trip, and that's on this channel.
Give it a watch. It's a great video.
Yeah.
Last remarks on Human Centipede.
If we're diving a little bit deeper, trying to find things that are a little bit more extreme or fucked up, I think that 1 is awesome. Mm-hmm. 2 is, I think, deserves a little bit more credit in terms of its extremeness.
I agree.
3 is goofy. It's more into like the splatter fun kind of stuff than the other 2.
I agree. You hit the nail on the head. The perfect description of all 3 films. Well, this looks like the end of episode 7.
Yep, 7th Heaven.
7th Heaven, I like it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Woo! Heaven! Woo! Good episode.
Yeah.
That was fun.